Okay, let's zoom out a bit here. Give me a sec to just configure everything. All right, cool. So welcome back to part 11. We'll finally get there. Before I get into this video, just to comment about the video quality. I did have a post from someone. I haven't had a chance to reply to you, but I will. Yeah, I'm aware that the video quality hasn't been great, particularly in the last couple of videos. And I think that's to do with the Wi-Fi signal in this room that I'm using. I've just repositioned my Mac, and I think that's going to be a little bit better tonight. Obviously, the permanent solution is to have a Ethernet, hardwired cable. And I actually have got cabling put through my house when I bought this house, and for reasons I cannot fathom to this day, I did not ask them to put a network port into this room. I've actually got network cabling going through this room to other rooms, but not into this room. So in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'm going to get an electrician in and have them put a port in for me. So the feed should be much better at that point. So all I can do till then is just say I'm sorry. I'm aware there are some issues with it. Be interested to see whether this one I'm doing now comes across a little bit better because I've repositioned my Mac, hopefully to get slightly better Wi-Fi signal. My house is brick and concrete, which doesn't help. All right, so one of the other things I want to talk about is often when you watch modelers on YouTube, you probably think, oh, they never seem to make mistakes. Well, I'm here to prove that wrong. And let's show you the plane and you'll see it looks a tad different. It's green. If you recall, it was grey last time I showed you, and there's a reason for that, because I went to put the camouflage mask on and I realised it had been set up to put green down as the primary colour and then grey as the camouflage, and I'd done it the other way around. And so if I'd continued with that, the camouflage mask pattern would be reversed. So I had to repaint the plane in green, which I've done. And I've added some weathering to it as well. Same technique that I used before, so that's why I didn't bother putting it on the live feed, because you've already seen that once before. You can see it's a little bit more subtle. I've just decided to make it a little bit more subtle than it was before, but it's the same, exactly the same principle as what you saw. The paint I use for that, by the way, is Mr. Hobby. And this is the Aquas Hobby colour. This is the equivalent of the Tamiya acrylic paints, basically, the original Tamiya acrylic paints. It's acrylic paint. You can use X28 with it if you want to thin it. If you're a Tamiya fan and you use them because you just find them easy to mix and work with, and if you haven't tried these, you should, because in my opinion, these behave almost identical to the Tamiya paints. But you've got a much, much bigger colour range to choose from, many more colours. So you don't have to keep mixing up your own colours and things like you do with Tamiya when you're trying to do some colour schemes. I realise they're a bit harder to get in some parts of the world, but they're a very good paint, by the way. For all the media attention we get on new paint brands and new, a lot of the Spanish type stuff, which I've got all of that as well. But this is just a good old faithful. It just works. And their lacquer paint, which is Mr. Colour. So if you see Mr. Colour, that's the lacquer versions. You see the Hobby Colour, that's the acrylic versions. Their Mr. Colour paints, lacquer paints are also excellent. So they're just an excellent brand either way. And one handy thing they do on a lot of their paints is the acrylic and the Mr. Colour have the same paint code. So you can just pick which particular brand. I think instead of a H, they've got a C. So it'll be C330 instead of H330 for the Mr. Colour. Anyway, that's what I did. Same technique as before, thinned it right down, used a bit of transparenter with it as well, which is this stuff from Ammo MIG. Used their own brand thinner. I've got some of that put in a little bottle there to make it easier to dispense it. And for lightening the colour, I used Molar Iraqi sand, which is just a nice sort of yellow, or not a yellow, it's more of a brown, beigey sort of colour, light beige. And so that got me to that point. Okay, so what else have I been doing? You can see there's lots of bits of cardboard here, or bits of paper sitting on the bench here. So I probably should explain what's going on there. So I want to put a camouflage mask on to make it easier to paint the camouflage, but I want to have a little bit of a soft edge to it. Now, I'm not sure if that's technically correct. I know in the early part of the war they used like these big matte sort of mask they would throw on the plane and then brush paint the camouflage colour, so the demarcation between the colours was very straight and sharp. But I've looked, and I know a lot of warbirds that have been restored have softer airbrush style camouflage edges. So I'm not sure whether the original aircraft, they went to airbrushes later in the war, or they just kept with the brushes. I have a feeling they probably did go to airbrushes because that would speed up the production process a little bit once they'd invested in the equipment sort of thing. But either way, I decided I'd like to have a little bit of a demarcation that's softer between the two colours than just a hard line. And that kind of created the challenge for me because I have to come up with a way of doing that. Now, I've done this before, this technique. Let's just explain what I'm doing here. I cheated a little bit in that I bought this paint mask. This is a paint mask from DM Models. And nothing wrong with the mask at all. I could have used it straight out of the package here. Problem is, I would have ended up with hard edges because this is an adhesive. You stick it on the model, you paint, away you go. Quickest and easiest way to do it, hands down. But I decided to make life more complicated for myself. So what I've done instead is a technique I've used before. And basically, I have a scanner and printer upstairs. Those 2-in-1 devices a lot of people have for their small home office. And I scanned in that paint mask, this one here, into a graphics program, into like a Photoshop equivalent called Pixelmator Pro on the Mac. Did a little bit of tweaking and then printed it out on an A4 sheet of paper and then used a hobby knife to cut out the various shapes that are going to make up the camouflage mask. And the reason I went to all this trouble when I already had a paint mask is the secret is these little bits of tape you can see here, which are just from your normal, skinny to me masking tape. This will sit on the model, but it won't sit right hard up against the model. There'll be a slight lip or edge to these paint masks, the way I'm going to be sitting them on the model. And that slight edge is just enough to give you a slightly softer finish between the demarcation lines between the two colours. It's subtle, but it's there. And so, because I know it's there, I decided to go for it. The other way I use this technique, by the way, which is cheaper, is I will use, I did this with the Airfix Hurricane actually, here's the colour guide that the Airfix includes in the kit. So what I did with the Hurricane was I had the equivalent of this. I just scanned it in, and then I scaled it up to 1:1 by doing a few test prints until I got the camouflage pattern to fit the model properly, and then I cut it out and did the same as this, and that worked fine as well. So either way will work. Once you've done that, then you can apply them. The one thing that this pre-made mask had for it in the instructions, which was handy, and here's a guide here, it actually numbers the various parts of the mask, and then on the actual, you can see there, it actually numbers them and shows you where those masks go, which is quite handy. So what I did, very low tech, was once I had printed these out, I just wrote with a pen on the other side what the number was that matches that particular camouflage mask. So the goal now is to attach those masks to the model and then go ahead and put the grey on, cross both fingers, and then see if, and toes, and then hopefully when this process is finished we will have a camouflaged Spitfire. Hopefully. It worked perfectly on the Hurricane, and now that I'm videoing this it probably won't work on the Spitfire, but we can only try. If we can get within 90% of it I can probably manually touch up the rest anyway. So that's the goal. Okay, so we'll start with the tail, and all I'm going to do there basically is find the matching part, which is a little bit of a challenge to start with, but I'm sure it'll get easier as we use up the parts. And I'll put that on. There's the first one. So off camera, because you can just see it there. There's what we're trying to do. Just put the plane around the right orientation. It's a bit dark on the camera, I know. I'm sorry about that. It's just the dark greens causing this camera to have a little bit of a hissy fit. I'm not sure if I can do much to improve it. I'll try and put a bit of light on it there. And so then we just got to line this up as best we can. It won't fit perfectly because I'm not that good. So we're going to have to do a little bit of taping to fix up some bits. But if it fits within reason, I'm happy. Just like that. So I can already see that's not quite going to work for me. All I'm going to do is just cut a couple of pieces out that I need. And then just, right at the back there, it wasn't quite going far enough to go over the aileron. Sorry, the elevator. Gosh, know what that is. I used to fly. And so I'm just going to put a little bit of tape there just to hold the end down. Like so. And I can do the same on the front as well if required. Which in this case, I think it is. That'll also help hold that mask in place once we start putting some spraying down and getting air pressure going on the model. Now obviously this technique does require you to use fairly low air pressure, so you can't do this technique and then blast out at 30 psi or something, or even 20 psi, because you're probably going to come unstuck. Alright, that's that one. And we got another one to go on the other side. So I'm guessing that one. Yep. And we're just going to line that up. Again, if there's any bits you got to touch up, you can do that now. I'm not going to be too worried about it if it's not exactly the same, but as long as it's close enough. There we go. What I should be doing is giving it a hard edge. Okay, and then we're going to keep repeating this until we get them all used up. So what we're up to now, I think we'll do the wings because they're going to be easier. The fuselage is going to be the hard bit. We're going to have to wrap things around a bit. So I might try and get the easier ones out of the way. So I'm looking for part 4. Might be that one. Yep. And a really big piece now, which is something. They didn't number it. Yes, they did. 3. Okay, it's this one. That way. It goes just near the guns, which is there. It's not looking right. I've got number 4 in the wrong spot, but anyway, we'll come back to that. We'll get this one down first. Yep, you can see we're a bit short here. The scale's not quite right, but we will just dodge it in the best tradition of the model making, and you won't know the difference unless you're really into your Spitfire camouflage. And what I'll do is I'll move that 4 just a little bit. That should look a bit better. At any rate, you can see the technique I'm using now. Whether it's crazy or not, I don't know, but it seems to work. At least it did the first time with the Hurricane. I was very surprised at how well it came out. So I'm sort of hoping I get to repeat it this time on camera. And this is a technique, while it's more labour intensive, if you don't want to be going and buying pre-cut masks, or you don't want to freehand it, well, you've got another option, I guess. Yeah, I don't think that's going to easily move, so I'm not going to try and make it move. We'll just have it look a little bit different, so I could be a bit creative here. We'll see if we can make that a little bit. A bit more interesting. Stop picking up pieces would be helpful. There we go. That'll do. There's a bit of a demarcation in there. Alright, other wing. 1. So we've got another big piece to go on, which I'm guessing is this one. Yep. These masks were made for a Spitfire that didn't have clip wings, by the way, and not for this specific kit. They're more generic, if you like, masks. They're in the right pattern, but they're just designed for any Spitfire Mark V, pretty much, of which this is a Mark V. If you're wondering why they don't quite seem to fit the wings perfectly, it's just, that's the reason why. And I'm just basically going to adapt them to this kit. In fact, I'm going to use another technique there. This side here, it's short. So what I'm going to do is use this stuff, Panzer Putty, which is another way you could have done it. If you haven't used this before, it's like a rubber. It works flexibly. You can put it over paper, I've done that before. Like so. If you leave it on the model for any length of time, particularly in warm weather, it will flatten itself out onto the model, and when it does that, it'll give you a hard edge. But if you do it while it's still relatively new on the model and it's sitting upright, it's sitting up, particularly if you roll it up into like a worm, if you think of it like that and you put it on, it'll actually it'll actually give you a soft edge. So this would have been the viable alternative way to do it. Would have been just to take this stuff and get it to the shape you wanted and put it on. I've done that before with a little phantom kit that's actually up on the videos. If you have a look, I've got a little egg plain phantom, and that's the way I did the camouflage on that. But I just like the paper one because it does give a little bit more of a soft edge than even this stuff can do. But you will see me using it to join a few pieces, particularly between the wings and the fuselage when we get to that. How's that supposed to look? Like that. So between these techniques we'll get there. Actually, I'm going to put some on the other side there too, I just noticed. Okay, and I've just got to do the same here. I've noticed there's a bit of an edge on the other side as well. Needs a bit of tape just to hold it down. Careful with this one so I don't overlap it. Go. As you can see, it's not a particularly sophisticated way of doing things, but it works, he says confidently. Alright, there's the wings done. I think we'll look at 7 now. Let's go find it. There we go, 7. So this is where we get into the more fun and games, because we've now got the bits to wrap around the fuselage, and the challenge is just trying to work out which way around that's supposed to orientate. Don't know if this really helps, but we'll have a look, see if this helps. So they've got it around like that. So I'm guessing it goes like that, and then wraps around the fuselage. No, that doesn't make sense. That looks to be like the wing root there. It's going, that's confusing. I'm going to leave that one. I'll come back to that. Let's try 8. I'm hoping the element will make more sense when I come back to it towards the end. Okay. That's presumably the exhaust stack, I think. Has it got a side profile? It has. Okay. There we go, that's better. I can see it from that way then. So that's going like that onto the exhaust stack and then down to, okay, there we go. Close enough. There, and that's going around up to there. Right. Okay. Probably should look at the side diagram for 7. I bet it would make more sense. Anyway. 12. Let's have a look at 12. So 12's going onto the side of the aircraft. Up against the wing root. That's good enough. Then up around the, oh yeah, and then going up around the back of the, like that. You can see we've got a gap in there we're going to have to deal with, but I'm going to ignore that for the time being. We will address it though in time. Now we just got to get the darn thing to sit where we want it. We can come back and fix the rest. Okay, 14. It's 13. 7. 14. 14 is on the tail. Leading down to the fuselage. And that's actually not a bad fit. It's a little bit short. As I said, this wasn't made specifically for this kit. So it's a little bit short. But it ain't bad. And then we've got another piece, a really giant piece there, which I can't work out what that is. Can't see the number for it. 13. Okay. That's going to be going up over the fuselage somehow, like that, and then joining up with the tail. Okay. So, and then I think we can shift our focus to the other side. We've got 6. 6 is at the back on this side, going over the back door just a little bit, so it's actually going up here quite a bit and joining up with the other camouflage. close enough. Well, I say close enough, not really. Let's get that out of the way for a sec. You can see where it's supposed to go if I put it like that. This part's going to need a little bit of touching up. That's okay, we can do that. Obviously there's going to have to be a join in there. And what else we got? Let's actually just, so it doesn't flop around. Won't be perfect for now. It'll hold it. Let's just put a bit of tape on there. Okay, what else we got? 11. I'm going to guess that's on the rudder on the other side. No, it's on the nose. Oh, okay, it's joining up with that. And again, that's going to be slightly out of alignment. We'll fix that up in a minute. 11 and 5. 5 is the tail on this side, going across the top of the tail there and joining up from the look of it. Yep, and joining up with this. Again, that's a bit short, so we're going to have to touch that up. I hope we don't get that wrong. I think I've got one more piece to go on, so I'll just, for now, I'm just going to get some tape. Oh, it's on a different side. Okay, I'm going to leave that and come back to that. Alright, what's next? 7. Oh yes, 7. 7 is a giant piece that goes over the canopy. That's why that's square. Okay. That's supposed to be wrapping around and joining that. Which won't quite do, but it'll get close enough. Okay. So that's all the paper mask supplied, but we do have gaps everywhere. So the next step, before I actually go and paint, is I have to go around and try and make these pieces fit a little bit better, or touch them up, or whatever I've got to do to get them to work. And then get them to hold down. So it'll be a combination of things I'm going to use here to do that, depending on the scenario. Yep, that should work. So the first thing we'll do is use some tape just to hold some of the joins. And then I'm probably going to have to use some plastic putty here as well, mainly because the see this piece sitting up. Cool thing about plastic putty is, if I just zoom you in a bit there so you can see what I'm doing. Oh, try the other zoom. You can see the paper is just sitting up there on that 11, the front there on the nose. So I'm just going to put some plastic putty underneath it. And you've got two options here. You can either cut it, or you can just use your knife to shape it. Since there's the exhaust stacks there, I'm not too worried about that. That's fine. And then so we can do a combination of that and tape to hold it in place. And get it where we need it to be. Yep, so it goes solid around here somewhere. Put that there. So I'd say it's fiddly, but it's not. This technique's not hard. It's just fiddly. If the overspray is any minor, you can brush paint it. A little bit overlap there on the tape, so just put that underneath. Okay, so that's the front bit joined. Just checking to make sure that looks okay. And then we'll add a little bit of reinforcement to the bottom of it. Mainly just to allow for airbrush pressure. I don't want it to blow it off the model. So I'm just using a bit of tape to hold the bottom of it down. Where it should be a clean line onto the masking tape underneath. And to make sure we don't get any overspray there. Okay, so there's the nose patched. And we'll patch this bit here now. This one here is slightly out of alignment, here and here. I'm going to just fix that with some of the Panzer putty. For the actual join, at least for most of the join, I'm just going to use tape, because tape will fill it in obviously, but also strengthen that join. If I can get the tape on straight. Right, so for this other end, let's try and get some Panzer putty. This stuff's like tar, best way to describe it. Comes out quite stiff. You can stretch it, and if you work it with your fingers, your hands or whatever, it will get soft over time. And then you can just work it in to come up with a pattern that works. And it will stick on the paper, which is why I like it. He says as it immediately comes off the paper. There we go. Right. And now this bit we're doing now with the fuselage is by far the most fiddly, realistically. Don't like the look of that corner. I'll use some pans of putty to give us a little bit of a profile there. Yeah, I'll go live with that. Okay, so I don't have to worry about this side, but I do have a short length there I have to fix. And this bit obviously, it's just a bit too wide. Make it a bit thinner. Normally, the problem is getting the tweezers to pick up the tape, but not today. It's getting it to go off the tape. Okay. Right, so the other place we've got to worry about is down here. You can see it actually doesn't go far enough, so I'm going to have to fix that. I'll start with some tape. And I think Panzer Putty is going to come to the rescue again here for a little bit of it as well. I'll just pick up a hair because that'll be handy. About there. So I'll just hold it in place a bit better. I might go away with tape, we'll see what happens. Okay. Because this is going down to a hard edge, I don't need to worry about the soft sort of feathered look that I'm going for here, which is why I'm using this for the bottom bits where it goes into the underbelly of the plane of the different colour. So it is working very slightly. Okay, so we've patched that. Get that on camera. So I've just patched the bottom there with some tape. Just checking that. And so I'm going to be using a 0.2 airbrush, as you probably can guess here, because I want to be a bit more specific about where I'm spraying, given what we're trying to do here. Too many places I could make mistakes. Way too many places where I could make mistakes. See you just gotta slowly and methodically work your way around the model. And we'll double check it after this, and then we should have a pretty decent camouflage mask. Yep, that's fine. Alright, then we get to the tail. It's going to be a little bit more tricky. Particularly we're going to join here. So I'm going to want to tape that, but it's very fine, so I'm going to have to cut a bit of tape to do that. Jeez, I nearly got away with that. Just get that tape to behave. I think I will get away with it. I did. We've got a little bit of wraparound on the tail there, on the rudder. So we're just going to have to be very careful where we apply that. And we've got a bit there we're going to fix. That might have to be panzer putty. Getting distracted. Let's do this bit first. Yes, just about. Just about. I think we call that close enough. Alright, now we'll squeeze those two bits together. Around this edge here, it's just meant to be on one side of the rudder. So what I'm going to do, and that so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just putting the panzer putty on the top of the rudder there. Let it stick up, that's fine. It just covers that top but leaves this side, sorry, on camera. That side still can be painted, and that side's protected. And now we're going to do a bit of panzer putty magic for the front as well, where this joint is, to make it look like it should be right. Just like that. There we go. A bit concerned there might be a little bit of overspray there. I don't think it'll be a lot, but there's a risk. So on the lower wing here, just to be on the safe side, I'll just put a little bit of tape. Also hold it down in case there's any problems with it moving. Okay. Let's take the camera out a little bit so you can see where we're up to. There we go. You can see we've now got the camouflage pattern. And what I'm going to do now is just give it a quick, well not so quick, just give it a look, see if there's any spots where I'm going to need to touch it up or reinforce it. Mainly just thinking about the air pressure blowing the mask off. I will use a low pressure, but it might be better in some places just to put a bit of tape to save myself the grief of it moving. So I'll do that. We've also got, I think, is that grey or is that green in there? No, that's supposed to be grey in there. So it's just the front that's green. So a little bit of panzer putty in that corner there as well. So the other thing you do with panzer putty too, just as an aside, is you can cut it. See, I've got a strip that's just been sitting here. So I'm just going to just almost treat it like masking tape. Cut a strip of it out because it's been sitting in there for a bit, so it's gone flat. And then I can just pop that in exactly where I want it. It's great stuff, this masking, this panzer putty. I think there's a few different brands of it out there now. And you can spray it and then just recycle it. You don't have to throw it away. There we go. Let's patch that. Again, just checking where we've got potential problems. So because I'm using this particular technique, and this is not designed to last long term, I'm going to have to apply the weathering straight after I've put the base coat on. Hope for the best as far as the finish is concerned. Oh, bugger, it's lifted up the paint. I scratched it. Sorry, it's a brush touch on that one. Just cut that tape. That tape was just a little bit too long. Same with that guy. There you go. So yeah, I'll have to do the whole thing in one hit. I'll have to hope for the best, and then I'll have to touch it up if I make a complete mess of it somewhere. Alright, there we go. So next, put that aside somewhere safe where I can drop it later. Next up is mixing up some paint. Back to our life colour. This paint's quite spraying quite well actually, so no dramas there. Again, I know some people get emotional about life colour paints and can't work with them. I'm not 100% sure why. It's just an acrylic paint. So we won't need as much. I think we'll start with 20 drops and see how it looks, maybe 30. That's 20 or so, but it's very thick, so I don't think we'll need more than that. No, we won't need more than that. All right. And we'll add a little bit of Vallejo's airflow improver. I already have flow improver as part of the mix with the life colour thinners, but when I'm spraying low pressure I like to add a bit more. It does make the paint look a bit more satin when you spray it, but I don't care because I'm going to be putting a varnish on anyway. So I'm starting here with a 50-50 mix. I'm absolutely guaranteeing I'm going to have to thin it more than that. But I start with that just to see how we're going and to see if the paint's behaving. So I can tell it's too thick, but it is mixing fine. And so now I just start adding some more thinner until we get it to where I want it. Now because this is going over the green, I'm going to put it on fairly thin, and then if I need to add more coats, I'll add more coats. The reason why is because I have to spray this at a fairly low air pressure so as not to blow the mask off the aircraft, so the paint's going to have to be able to flow fairly easily at low air pressure. I think that's worth a shot. So I'm just running it up the side of the cup. If you haven't seen that trick before, should probably zoom in. So that's how I gauge it anyway. I just go and draw it up the side like that and just see how long it takes. If you wait long enough, it'll start going translucent. You'll see the paint rolling back down in to the bottom of the cup. That'll give you some idea. If you're adding a really interesting concoction of thinners and paints and things, another tip would be is to leave it for a minute or two and let the chemical reaction happen. This isn't too bad because I'm really just using their thinners. It's not too bad. But if I'm adding lots of things like that transparent and other stuff, what you probably would have noticed is I mix the paint first, then I go and set up the spray booth and do all the other things. And that just gives me a bit of time for that paint to sit and for all those different materials to start, particularly the thinners, to start reacting properly and thoroughly mixing up the pigment. And I'll give it a little bit of a stir before we put in the airbrush if needed. Okay, let's look at switching across to the other camera. You can see what I'm doing over there, spray booth. Let's put some lights on as well. Okay, we'll switch her across now. There we go. And we can see there's the model. So you have to be careful not to get too far back and dip into that water. That would be a little bit of a tragedy at this point. There's our paint. So the airbrush I'm going to use for this particular bit is going to be the 0.2 needle, which is my Tamiya HGSF. This is a Japanese made one, not the Chinese made ones. I think it's BB Rich is the name of the company in Japan that makes them. They make the Owadas, they make some of the Tamiya airbrushes, not all of them, some of them made in China as well. But they make, the other brand they make is these Krios airbrushes, which Mr. Hobby Krios. So if you want a white quality airbrush, those Krios ones are really good. Okay, let's put the waterfall on. Oops. Right, compressor on. So as I said, we're going to go for a fairly low air pressure here. I'm just going to get some paper towel. Try and drop something, no doubt, before I finish tonight. I'm just going to have to try and dial in the airbrush first. You don't want to waste too much paint, but I also don't want to... You can see that? You can, yep. Okay, that's spraying nicely, but way too high a pressure. Let's wind that back. It's usable. Let's see if we can go a little bit lower. Yeah, we'll start with that and see how we go. So that's about a bit under 10, I think. We'll start on the tail. See that? Yep. Now the trick to using this mask, by the way, is do not spray at an angle because you'll go underneath the mask. Spray directly or horizontally or whatever it is, vertically, I can't remember, to the mask. Let the mask to work for you. There we go. That's almost drying in real time. Do the same on the other side. There we go. Because I've got some airflow, which is retarder effectively, this will take a little while to dry. But I am putting on very thin coats, so it won't take that long even with the retarder. Don't forget to do underneath the wings. And then hopefully you can notice I'm trying to keep the airbrush pointing straight at the mask where I'm spraying. Just checking my work there. Okay, we'll do the other side. Whoops, that didn't pass quality control. Let me just get a bit of Panzer putty to fix that problem. And that mask on the rudder on this side doesn't go back far enough. So if I'd actually started spraying, I would have put some colour on the wrong spots. We'll just dodgy that up. Hopefully I didn't leave a fingerprint on the other side. Don't think I did. Check 3 times, shouldn't I? Okay. Try that again. Let's pull that up a bit. Test spray. Bit of dry tip there on the airbrush. Be slightly out on the back, I think, but not horribly. It's going to be easy enough to touch up if I didn't quite get that right. Oops, again I'm out of camera. Again, notice I'm trying to get the airbrush pointing directly at the mask, not at an angle. No, it's not always possible. Where I can. Cool thing is, because I'm doing a weathered one too, is if I don't quite get enough paint coverage, often it looks fine on the finished model because it looks like it's worn. So I'll just claim I intended to do that. This paint's going on quite well over the green, better than I thought it would. So that's a good thing. Airbrush is getting a little bit annoyed with me because of the low pressure. It's not spraying quite as nicely as I normally would have it. But I'm just ignoring that. As long as I don't cake it on, it should work. And once we get started, as you can see, it's a pretty quick process. Okay, so we're on to the other wing now. We're going to do the fuselage. I think we'll do the fuselage. When you see the airbrush disappear, I'm just spraying a bit of paint through onto the paper towel just to clear the nozzle. And a little bit of dry tip, not much, but a little bit. That's probably where we're going to have a problem, child, I reckon. We're going to have a problem with the mask. It's going to be around here, because that would be the most difficult spot to touch up. Break for a sec. Right. So we can see it's hopefully you can see it's coming along all right. That gun painted. Okay, last bit. Just on the end of the wing there. Try to find somewhere to hold it without getting in trouble. Alright. On there. On there. Okay. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to check the model to see if I've covered everything. In some cases, if I haven't covered it completely, I may still leave it that way just because it looks a bit like it's worn. But in other places, like for example right here, I just missed it, so we have to go back over and have another go. It's just me being lazy. There we go. So next step is to apply the weathering. And this particular instance, that will be a bit easier. Let me just switch cameras. It's going to be a bit easier because I've still got a little bit of paint left over, which is enough for this job. So let's go ahead and do that now. This wants to cooperate. I don't know how much. 3 would be more than enough. Let's try 2. I'll just try and very subtly lighten it up. For some reason the grey actually is stronger than the green when it comes to having to add more colour. Come on. I'm a bit concerned about this nozzle. Get it working properly. Should be enough, surely. Yeah, that'll do. Okay, so now we've got the paint in there. We'll add a bit more transparenter because we want to build up the shading. And we'll have to thin it a bit more as well because we've added more paint. And this is going to be quite a thin mix. Thinner than what we've been spraying before because I want more control and I don't care if it's translucent. In fact, that's kind of the goal. So this is going to be quite thin. Yep, okay. You can see that's, I just do it like that, you can see how thin it is. Put it inside the cup, see how quickly it goes up. Alright, next thing is to get rid of the balance of the paint in our airbrush. Okay, since we're using the same colour basically, I don't really need to clean the airbrush. I've got the airbrush pressure up really high at the moment because I want to blast through the old paint and make sure I'm using the new stuff. Now we'll dial it down. We're going to dial it down quite a bit. So show you what I'm doing here. Okay, we'll give that a go. We'll go back to the plane. I'm going to start on the tail because it's easiest to fix if I get this wrong. I can tell that's already too high a pressure. That's way too high pressure, it's still not behaving. I'll have to do, but I'm not happy about that. not behaving itself. It's starting to annoy me. It'll do the job, but it's not spraying particularly nicely. I don't think we've got enough contrast, to be honest. In fact, I'm sure we haven't got enough contrast. Let's add some more white. Try that without seeing it, just see what happens. See if it behaves better. No, I'll try that. It's a little bit more contrasty, but the paint is just not, it's not behaving itself. Any way I can tell you, it's just not, I've got something wrong with the mix. But it's a shame. Come on. No, it's clogging up. Which is a real shame. Anyway. It'll work. It's not taking more effort. I don't think I've reviewed that enough. Let's try on the top. Oh, come on, paint. it's working, but not without fighting me. Alright. I think that's going to have to do us. Not perfect. But it will work. Alright. That's enough of that. Let's go for the big reveal. See how our camouflage works or not. So let me just clear some space on my other bench. And switch cameras. Alright. There's our model. Panzer putty away. So we'll take the Panzer putty off first because I can recycle that. Where I can recycle it. Okay. Oh, we're not recycling all of it. That's okay. Right, there's the mask. And there's the result. A little bit softer than I'd hoped, but a couple little touch-ups I can see, but not bad. Not bad. Just gotta be careful here not to scratch the paint. It's going to be touch-ups for sure on a model this much masking's been done on and recoats have been put on, so that's just comes with the territory really at this point. Let's try this wing. Probably should leave this normally to dry for a little bit before I do this, but since you guys are having to put up with a long video anyway, I'll do it now. And we'll hope for the best. Okay, it's decided to be hard to do for reasons. Let's do it that way. That said, the look that I was going for, which was a slightly worn Spitfire, I think that's worked pretty well. It doesn't look like it's new. but it doesn't look like it's been abused, which is kind of where I like my models to sit. I don't like them to look like they've been through 2 world wars, generally, unless the subject matter I'm doing it on clearly has photographs that says that's what it looked like. Because at the end of the day, people still had to climb in this and fly it, so it had to be kept, had to be serviced to some degree. Because I'm using these paper masks, I can dispose of them. I don't have to worry about keeping them. Oh, bit of pans of putty there I can recycle. There I can use. Bit over there somewhere I can use. Very stringy, not sure why. Stop being so stringy. Got it. There's an edge there that's not quite right. I have to touch up. So far it's the only one that's jumping out at me, so it's not too bad. Yeah, that's okay, I guess. No, that'd probably be right actually once you take the canopy masking off. You won't mind that then. Turn that compressor off because that's annoying me, that noise. I don't need the spray booth. Okay, so that's the first part of the reveal. Let me go back a bit on the camera for you. There we go. So it's not too bad so far. Of course, the other big test is how do the underneath go? So I guess we better find out. And is there enough contrast is the other thing. Between the top and the bottom. Well, that came out alright, that side. What about this side of the engine? Yep, that's the colour contrast I wanted. You can see there's a different grey there. That came out nice. That's fairly close to the photo I found of one of these. Thought that was overspray, it's not. It's a little bit of Panzer Putty. This is the fun part of the project, but also just scary because you just keep crossing your fingers that it's all going to come together. And most of the time it does, and then you get a project where it will never come together. Don't T, you're doing so well. Alright, let's just put that off frame for a sec. I'll show you in a tick. I just want to clear my bench a little bit because I don't want this stuff sticking onto the model after I've taken it all off. Alright. Out of the way. Let's do the big reveal, so I'll show you what it looks like. There's a little bit of, that's tape or something stuck there. That'll come off, by the way. I'm not rubbing it too hard because paint's still fresh. I hope that you can see that. Let me try and zoom in a bit. Okay. So that's our camouflage. As I said, a couple of little touch-up points. I can see there's one over there. There's a little one in here. A couple of minor things to do. Nothing too dramatic. There's the underneath of our plane. And I'm pleased to say that the fuselage, or the demarcation lines between the upper and lower camouflage have come out perfectly fine. So I think we've got the beginnings of a late war Spitfire. So that's probably a good spot to finish the video. What's coming up next is going to be some of the detail painting. So we have a band that goes on the back. We also have some yellow markings that have to come onto the front of the plane. They all have to be painted. So that's probably the next video. But that's where we're up to, guys, with our late war Spitfire. As you can see, the contrast is quite high, particularly on the bottom there, but that's going to start fading away once we start doing a bit more work on the model. So far so good. Hopefully the video came out alright. You can at least see some things. If you haven't, I'm so sorry, but we will fix that networking in the next couple of weeks. And what I might do is I might just take some photos tomorrow of this after it's had a chance to dry. And I'll post those up on the channel as well, just so you can see some photos of it and get a better look at it. Alright guys, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks mate, by the way. Appreciate it. I just saw your comment, looks good. Thank you. Alright.